Lost is a subpar healer who only knows how to use one basic heal spell, and because of this, he gets kicked out of his party and is called an ignorant loser by the people around him. One day in the guild, a girl asks Lost to form a party with him, and this is so surprising that everyone in the guild goes from minding their own business to a state of utter disbelief. Even Lost can't understand why she would want to form a party with him. But the girl points out that he is holding a party recruitment sign, so he is clearly looking for party members. The girl's name is Narina, and she introduces herself as a martial artist in need of a party member, but before she can get Lost to agree to team up with her, the guild receptionist runs up and interrupts her. The receptionist's name is Amherst, and she takes Narina by the shoulders just to tell her how much of a bum Lost is. Lost is a healer, but he is only capable of using the basic heal spell despite having been an adventurer since he was a child. He can't use area heal or any high healing magic, so everyone has branded him as an incompetent fool. However, despite all this, until recently, there was a party called Blade of Lightning that took him in as a member, but Lost sucked at his job so much that he eventually got kicked out. And because he is seen as a failure, no one wants to team up with him anymore. Amherst encourages Narina to ignore Lost because he's so ignorant that she won't be able to make any profit, but Narina actually has a lot of money on hand, so she isn't worried about profits right now. To prove it, Narina pulls out her bag full of money to show Amherst, and she has clearly never been to Detroit because she would have gotten mugged almost instantly. Amherst warns Narina that the adventurers here aren't exactly law-abiding citizens, so she should be careful about flashing so much cash like that. Narina thanks Amherst for the advice and says she will keep it in mind, but from the way she responded, it doesn't look like Narina really understood what Amherst was talking about. Amherst assumes Narina must be a new adventurer, so she offers to help set her up with some newbie-friendly adventurers so she can make it through the day without getting robbed, but of course, she'll be charging a small fee for her services. Narina appreciates the offer, but she already decided a long time ago that Lost was the only person she would form a party with, so she's going to stick with him. Amherst still doesn't think it's a good idea, but since Narina is so insistent, she begins the paperwork for their party formation. Narina asks what the paper is for, so Amherst explains that they need to fill out the registration form to officially be recognized as a guild. Lost fills out his portion of the paperwork, and once he's done, he asks Narina to write her name on it. Narina was busy staring at Lost, so she was caught off guard when he asked her to write her name. But she still does it, and after Lost pays Amherst for commission fee, his and Narina's party has officially been formed. They leave the guild together, and Lost begins talking to Narina about the Labyrinth, since that's where they are headed. Apparently, no one has actually finished exploring the end of the Labyrinth, so there's no information on what kind of monster the Labyrinth Master is or how deep the labyrinth goes. Naturally, adventurers began to take up the challenge and explore the labyrinth in hopes of receiving large rewards, and the resulting influx of people led to the formation and growth of Mardat, the largest labyrinth city in the world. Narina is happy to learn all about the labyrinth, but she asks if it is really alright for them to be heading into it so soon. Before they left the guild, Amherst was adamant that Lost shouldn't take her into the labyrinth because Narina is still a newbie, and Lost definitely remembers her advice, but he's choosing to ignore it. Due to the amount of magical energy that leaks out from the labyrinth, monsters are able to spawn in different locations around the city. These locations are classified as the mountains, the forest, the wetlands, and the plains, but among them all, the plains are by far the safest since only weak monsters spawn there. Normally, a beginner adventurer would start by practicing in the plains so they can get a feel for combat, but it's such a large area that it's pretty difficult to find monsters to fight there. In contrast, monsters appear by the dozens in the labyrinth, and as long as you don't go too deep, you won't run into any particularly strong monsters, so Lost figures it will be a lot quicker for Narina to gain experience there. Narina agrees with Lost, so they both continue to the labyrinth entrance, but before they go in, Narina is eager to contribute to the party, so she says she will lead the way since combatants are supposed to be the vanguard. Lost doesn't usually stand back when he goes into the labyrinth, but since Narina is so happy about being the vanguard, he decides to just let her have her fun. Although, as they walk through the dungeon halls, he starts having his doubts because he doesn't know if Narina is actually capable of fighting or not. Okay, never mind, Narina knows how to box, and she's putting in work against a group of goblins she ran into. She defeats them all with relative ease, and Lost is really impressed with the amount of skill she possesses. The defeated goblins soon turn to dust, and in their place, a magic stone is left, so Lost picks it up and explains to Narina that adventurers give these stones to the guild and receive money in exchange. Narina asks what the guild uses the stones for, so Lost tells her that the stones have magical energy stored in them, so they can be used in all manners of tools and equipment. That much should be common knowledge to her as an adventurer, but Narina was never much of a learner. They've got 5 stones in total, and although goblin magic stones aren't worth much, they will still be able to get enough money from these to cover lodging for the night. They could call it a day and head back to town, or they could go a little deeper into the labyrinth to get some more money. And Narina is happy fun, so she says she wants to keep going. They head deeper into the labyrinth, but at a certain point, Las grabs Narina and pulls her back because there's danger ahead. At first, she's confused because she didn't notice anything off, but Las grabs a rock and places it on the tile in front of her, and it activates a pit trap which would have totally killed her if Las hadn't intervened. Narina is amazed and asks Las how he spotted the trap, so Las explains that the trap tile was a different shade of gray from the others, so he figured something must be wrong. Narina is glad Las was able to notice it, but trap identification is meant to be the job of a thief, so how come Las is so good at it when he's a healer? Las just tells her that he has been an adventurer for a long time, so he has picked up a bunch of skills over the years. They continue to move forward, but soon enough they come across an orc roaming the halls, and Las is surprised by this since orcs are mid-level monsters, so they aren't meant to appear so high up in the labyrinth. Narina asks if they should turn and run away, but Las doesn't think that will be necessary because his and Narina's combined strength should be enough to take it down, but he isn't going to force her to do anything she doesn't want to. Narina says she is fine with it since Las believes they can win, so they get in position and Narina charges at it, but when she lands her first kick, it feels more like she's kicking a rock than a monster. The orc raises its club and tries to strike her down, but Narina is able to block it with her hands, although she gets backed into a corner because of it and has nowhere to run as the orc prepares for another attack. However, moments before she is struck down, Las steps in front of her and defeats the orc with a single stab of his sword. He asks Narina if she's alright, and she's both amazed and grateful that he was able to save her, but she also wonders how he just did that when he's meant to be a healer. Las says he just happened to pick up a few combat skills over his years of being an adventurer, but that aside, they still need to collect magic stone, so they go to retrieve it. And it's a lot bigger than the ones they got from the goblins. It also has more magic in it, so they will get a lot more money if they sell it. With that said, Las asks her if she wants to call it a day and head back to the guild since they've earned enough money, and she has demonstrated her skills, but Narina says she wants to keep going a little longer, so Las ends up agreeing. By the end of their labyrinth exploration, they've gathered a lot of magic stones and returned to the guild to exchange them with Amherst. Amherst is surprised that they managed to get this many gems in only half a day, but then she notices the orc gem and begins scolding Las for taking Narina into the labyrinth when she specifically told him not to. It was really reckless of him to take her to the mid-level floors where she is just a beginner, but Las says he didn't actually take Narina to the deep floors. They were on the beginner level the entire time, and he only intended for them to fight goblins. But there was an orc roaming on the upper floors for some reason. Narina confirms that Las is telling the truth, so Amherst believes him, and his story isn't too far-fetched anyway, since there have been a lot of similar reports of high-level monsters showing up in beginner areas. Amherst isn't sure what's going on, but she knows it must mean something bad is going on down in the labyrinth. Although she doesn't get paid enough here to really care. Anyway, she asks if Las is here to sell all these gems, and Las says he is, so Amherst excitedly begins gathering the payment for him. Narina notices that Amherst is a little too happy to be buying magic gems, so Las explains that as guild staff, when Amherst buys magic gems from the adventurers she manages, she gets a fat commission on the sale. Once the money is ready, Las is shocked to see just how much there actually is, but Amherst reminds him that half of that belongs to Narina. Las is aware that he only gets half, but even half is 10 times more than what he usually got paid when he was part of Lightning Blade, and that's when he realizes that he was scammed by Lightning Blade. Amherst kind of finds the whole thing funny, but Narina reminds her that it's the guild's job to arbitrate when there are pay disputes, so Amherst says she will help Las get his money back if he wants her to. He thinks about it for a second, but he eventually decides not to bother getting his money back since he has already formed a new party and he wants nothing to do with Lightning Blade anymore. After Las leaves, the guild branch manager comes out, and while Amherst is busy counting her money, Handsome goes up to her and asks if Las was just here, and if so, he hopes she didn't refer him to any parties. Amherst says she obviously didn't refer that idiot to any parties, but there was one girl who specifically wanted to form a party with him, so there was nothing she could do about it. At the same time, Las and Narina arrive at an inn, and Las is welcomed by the innkeeper's daughter. She asks if Narina is the girl who recently joined his party, and Las confirms it, but he wonders how she knew about it already. The girl tells him that the news has been getting around since no one ever expected him to be able to form a party, but that aside, she asks if he is her to have something to eat. Lost would love some food, but first, he says he wants to reserve a room, so he goes to talk to the little girl's mother. Mary would be happy to get them a room, so she asks if they will be sleeping together or in separate rooms. Narina blushes a little at the thought, but Lost tells Mary that they will be staying in separate rooms, although Narina actually kind of liked the idea of sharing a bed with Lost. A little while later, Lost and Narina go to bed, and once Narina is alone in her room, she begins thinking about the first time she met Lost several years earlier. He had just saved her from an accident and was healing her wound with his basic heal spell, so she was really grateful that he took the time to heal her. So she decided right then and there that she would become an adventurer when she grew up and support Lost in any way she could. Since that day, Narina began training relentlessly, and as soon as she heard that Lost had been banished from his party, she rushed over to the capital so she could be the first to team up with him. However, she is just now realizing that Lost probably didn't recognize her at all. Although it's hard to blame him since she did grow a lot taller than she was back then, she was wearing different clothes and her hair color even changed to blue. And even though she came here to help him, it turns out that Lost is so talented that he doesn't actually need her protection, but regardless of whether he recognizes her or not, Narina intends to continue to support him no matter what. Still, she can't help but wonder why people in this city call him an idiot, even though he is so strong. This was the end of episode 1. Subscribe to not miss the next part.